Hey, I know I'm behind by class and posting, but we'll get it up there today. So we should have, I posted 3 today. Uh, hey, welcome back. What is it? Yesterday, I'll have another one to add to the wall. Right, ITIL. They were doing over the web testing, Proctor. So I'll tell you, you finish the exam. And the proctor's been on mute the entire time. And all of a sudden, she's like, okay, and I'm like, ah! You've been so quiet. All of a sudden, like, my computer's talking to me. It's funny. I think it was funny. Okay, so this is an important topic, and I'm going to kind of draw you a scenario as we get into this thing, and just to kind of make you aware of what we're doing here. I think I want this a little lower. Yeah, I had to move everything around because I had to use the camera to show that I had no, cheat sheet on the wall or somebody underneath my desk. So I had to make it honest, which means the office is a little cleaner than I'm used to. And I actually washed the surface of the desk. Awesome. Anyway, all right, here we go. While you're listening to me, other than I'm so charming and interesting, don't. Just you can leave that go. Leave that go. At least the last 5 years. I have to count at some point. I think it may be 6 now of designing, implementing, and supporting multicast in an enterprise network. Okay, and then I've got a bunch of certs, so I've learned a number of things, both on the wired and wireless side. And I'll get to add, now I'm an ITIL v4 specialist as well. Isn't that exciting? And you can check out my badges on there if you're interested. And then disclaimers, I'm really going to be honest all the time that, where my knowledge is more thin, where I have a lot of experience. Most of the time, I'm talking for deep experience. There's some topics that I'll say I haven't done much of this or I haven't done it much, that's fine. So like when we get into IPv6, I'm going to work on a unit for that IPv6, I'm not running into production in big networks right now. So there's going to be problems that I haven't seen yet because I just haven't had the opportunity to, right? The concepts really are the same. So that's the good part, but I'll do a little bit with IPv6, okay? And the other piece of this is just Cisco's not paying me, not endorsing, at least at this point. If you ever want to, we can talk. And you also may notice the copyright notices that this is mine. You can't make money off it. Belongs to me, okay? You have an idea to make money off it, great, we can talk and make an agreement, okay? What is multicast? Group communication. Groups can be 0 or more computers, okay? It's been around a long time, 35 years now, in some form or another. And this is the one, I phased it that way on purpose. We've got it working maybe too well. And what risks am I introducing and how do I mitigate them? And I remember early on in some of the days when I was learning networking, or even, when you're learning as a system admin, that you're really excited, like things actually work. Like, okay, I have a client, the client's actually getting the files they want and they shared it with the people they want to be able to have access to, and like, awesome. Probably overshared. Probably gave too much control to the wrong places, right? So, you gave group everyone in the Windows world, you gave them full control. That was not a good thing, right? And we paid for that, right? So we'll get into talking about this in a second and what risks there are. This one, I'm always trying to think of a new way to go with this one. And we cut the scope in half. What does that even mean? So if I had like 12 things on the scope, now I have 6, doesn't mean the price is going to go down by half or the time will go down by half. The time may stay 90% because they're in what's left in the scope are long lead items, right? So it probably is going to change, even if the time, because of some long items in there, maybe stay at 100%. That I would suspect that in that case, then money's going to go down, the stuff we pulled out. Now, it's always good to run these numbers, right? Because of course they're like, well, we're going to we cut the scope in half, so we're going to save time and money. And you kind of look at it and you're like, no, this thing's still going to take X long. And that due to other things, the things you cut were pretty much freebies. Sometimes there are things like, hey, the vendor, you did all this stuff, we're going to throw this in for free. Which probably means you left something on the table you probably want to go back and renegotiate, but that's a different story. Okay. What's unicast versus multicast? Unicast, every receiver has to have its own stream. Multicast, they don't. Every link needs a stream. A stream, every interested link needs a stream. That's it, right? I thought this was kind of a good way of showing. Look at those little green guys. A lot fewer, if you saw the movie Braveheart, right, where the arrows, raining down, that, yeah, the arrow storm on the multicast side is a lot less deadly than it is on the other side, right? And again, another graphic way of saying, at least from the perspective of that very first hop, I keep the bandwidth minimal. And every interface, I keep that down, because you think about it in that other picture, right? I'm going to have little peaks. Sure, if I only have one interested client downstream, I have one stream, but I'm going to have more if my link has a lot of interested parties further down, number's going to go up, right? In a very linear fashion. These are the address ranges. This is important. I'm reviewing this right now. I want you to be able to look at NetFlow, look at a packet capture, and immediately go, oh, multicast, what's the dealio? And if you ever saw somebody trying to punch in a multicast in that Class D range into their interface, you're like, no. It's not, the host doesn't own that, right? You see them punching into their application config, you're gonna go, what range is that? Oh, hey, I remember that's in the IANA reserve ranges. Has that your vendor reserved that with IANA? Has they registered that? No. Oh, well, then we need to assign an address to it, and we're going to work on that. Can't give it to you right this second. Okay. And I put this back in just to kind of remind you of that whole thing on layer 2. So a non-IGMP snooping switch floods the traffic. This keeps you from listening to multicast. You'll drop it sooner because you'll see the MAC isn't an interesting MAC to you. Because of the oversubscription, given the right conditions, that you can be listening to something that you didn't really want because of that MAC overlap. And the ones to be careful are, you have 224.0.0.1 in particular. That's all multicast addresses. So if I was going to show that, so here's the first 24 bits, here's that 25th bit, the rest of this will be zeros, the rest of this will be zeros, and this will be a 1. So it would look like 01005E 001. Everyone's listening on that. Everyone who has multicast enabled is listening on that MAC. They will listen to it because they think it could be sent to every multicast host. So they're going to listen to it. So for example, if I use 239.200.0, let's, will that work? No, it'd be like 239.128.0.0.1 or 239.0.0.1. Don't do those. Okay, because those, yeah, you can have overlap. Okay, here's the various RFCs relevant to it. Didn't put in here. I'll do that when I start talking about IPv6. All right, I was focused on IPv4 at the time I first did this. I really hadn't been doing any IPv6. Now I've at least got like one, small client on IPv6 on dual stack. Yeah. And dual stack mostly because we bring in other vendors' equipment sometimes and don't know, like, if they saw native v6, if they, you'd have VPN issues and stuff like that. So not doing it. Okay, so this is a skewing thing. And let me kind of give you an idea about this. So when you turn on PIM on an interface and you turn on multicast routing and all that, stuff starts to happen. Now, that If it's a multi-interface device, so it could be a router, but supporting a bunch of layer 2 switches, or it could be a multi-layer switch. So you've got a bunch of SVIs, and I turned on PIM on a bunch of those interfaces. They're going to start communicating with each other. They're going to try and set up communication. There's a bunch of stuff happening that checking the mic, that you may not want happening. And some of it, frankly, is just, if it's not serving a purpose, now I have to take up memory, keeping track of sources, destinations, interested interfaces that I don't care about. And another concern is, say in a like public school environment, right? Particularly say high schoolish, where kids are starting to get kind of smart and cheeky, that like one of the things you can do is that I can use a common application like VLC. I can set up pornography streams, right, on my laptop. Say you're allowed to bring your laptop into school, and if you don't secure multicast, one of the things I can set up multicast stream and have other students watching my porn. Yeah, that's bad, right? Your school board hears about that. Oh, they're gonna be mad at your IT department. So, and not to say it couldn't happen inside, your company, right? Things like somebody sets up some kind of like bathroom cam and is multicasting it. Like, yeah, weird stuff happens. That when you're out of control of this stuff, when it's just running, right? Particularly in that situation where I've got like a nice multi SVI layer 3 switch, say like a 9410, Catalyst 9410. It's like a lot of ports on there, a couple VLANs. Yeah, I can have all this stuff happening that's completely out of my control. Okay. And there's some of these things like this SSDP, it's great for your home network. So your home network doesn't have a DNS server probably. You don't build a lot of infrastructure. It doesn't really, you don't really need it, but you sort of do, right? So how do you get from your Apple device to your app, your iPad to your Apple TV or whatever, right? Your MacBook to your Apple TV. You have an AirPrint printer and you have an iPad, and how does all that stuff happen? Well, typically it's multicast. And that's great. So there's things like MDNS, multicast DNS. So it's kind of like Microsoft browsing. The difference being Microsoft browsing was a broadcast. So we were broadcasting this stuff. Yeah, you can have wins, but you needed a server. So you're already in trouble, right? So now I had to have this broadcast. And so I'm spamming everyone with it. If I have an IGMP aware switch, then if I haven't registered for Bonjour, I'm not going to get Bonjour. So it's useful stuff, okay? And we're going to start at a couple places. So one of the places, assuming it's not just that 9410, but I actually have a real, I have more than one layer 3 device. So there's actually some PIM going on. You need an RP for sure. You don't have a default RP. One device by itself alone is a default RP because it'll route between the interfaces. You turn on the routing, turn on PIM, it'll work, okay? But you start turning on RP, some things to avoid. One of them is not scoping in any way the advertisements for the RP. So let it advertise the entire range. And anything anyone sets up will work. And in that sense of, I'm excited it actually is working. Yes, that's great. But now all of a sudden, a bunch of stuff that I didn't care about is now working. And now I have the overhead of this stuff going. And in some of these cases, some of the stuff has a TTL of 1, but it is going to try and connect. It's going to say, oh, outgoing interface. Yeah, I want it to go that way. The packets are going to expire. So if I do show IP mroute count, I'm going to see the stuff not getting anywhere, but it's still going to make the motions of trying to do it. Okay, and this 239, 255, yeah, I try not to use it because there's a bunch of stuff, particularly in the high range for some of these zero config, like this SSDP. Now, I did have a vendor who they had this black box solution. It was an audio visual system of some sort, and they had a server, and then they had these conference room devices, and they're like, oh yeah, we got to do it's all zero config. That's how we make this work. Well, that was dumb, because they were a layer 3 closet apart. I wasn't happy. We tried fixing it by extending. I don't think it worked. I think they had to go dig these things out of the ceiling and then, you know, connect them, and just right. Don't sell into an enterprise using home, you know, Soho technology. Not a good thing. We may not want to enable Soho. Okay. Now, this is another one, enabling all user interfaces that can have traffic which isn't needed or may not even work. So, yeah. So here's one of the things you can do. You can isolate things. So if all I really care about is I'm going to be doing, well, for example, if you're familiar with Vocera, those are those little badges you see often in healthcare that one of the great uses for Vocera is a ward nurse. You push you're in a bed in there, and you're clicking that button for nurse call. It pings her badge. She actually can hear you. Nurse, can I get some water? Right? She can get it from right there on her badge. And it uses multicast when she says, you know, what do pediatric ICU code blue, pediatric ICU code blue. Yeah, she's got a little button like call code blue, right? She'll press her button, call code blue. That will use a multicast group, right? So if it's only inside multicast there, okay, the Vocera servers are going to need PIM enabled on the interface that those run on. Okay, the active interface, if there's an out-of-band management, doesn't need it. If that's on a different subnet, different VLAN, doesn't need it, right? Though I probably want the wireless controllers, and there's some reasons that you don't have to do that. It's called multicast mode unicast, but I probably do. So yeah, the management interface for that, and then the VLANs that are, the VLAN, probably singular, that Vocera runs on. So I may only have like 3, well, and then the APs, wherever the APs are. And I may not want the APs sitting on the user VLAN just to make this work, right? So if I don't need it elsewhere, I don't turn it on, then this doesn't happen. At my school, say I have a PA system and I'm doing it across the network, and the speakers are using multicast for the PA. It's actually really good. It's a really smart design. I may put those on a separate VLAN just so that I don't have multicast running on this where the students are. So they can't do that. Oh yeah, see, I got porn on my laptop and I'm streaming it. I'm so cool. Right? No, that you not allowing it to happen. Okay. And then there's this other stuff like the GTL1. If that's all they're doing multicast with, they're doing things like SSDP, and I'm an enterprise, I don't want to run SSDP. It's not on. Inside that VLAN, yes, they do talk SSDP to each other. So you can have some weird resolution. Somebody throws on an Apple TV, and then they have like an Apple laptop, they can stream to it because it's happening inside the same LAN, right? It's not having PIM enabled or not enabled at the interface isn't making a difference. The two can find each other. The IGMP aware switch says, hey, I got a source for that group. I got a receiver that wants it. I'm gonna switch the traffic to that receiver's interface. So, yeah, that stuff will work. So, going beyond that. So, some solutions, right? So, I'm saying in some of these cases you can get sued. In some cases, you're just going to eat up memory. In some cases, you're going to have things like wasted bandwidth, wasted CPU cycles. So there's a lot of sort of wastage that's happening here. And then, of course, the more I've locked this down, the other thing, when later on you need to do changes, the thing is, if I have this thing well locked down, I don't look at a group and go, what is that? Because it's not working unless I've let it work. So then I should have documented to say, hey, I've assigned this group, 239, yada, yada, yada. That group belongs to this application. It's supported by this group. And I may have, I may have 2 layers. It's supported by this group, and it in healthcare, it's like, the application analysts have it, and it's a pediatric app, or it's a, podiatry, or whatever, whatever it has to be, that's what that is. That, or I may have the name of the app. I may have that. This is the analyst. This is the application name. This is the group that it runs this thing that it's for, right? So that's one of the great things. So limit, and there's an example, right? So if I only need that one address, I can advertise one address, not the whole range. Now I can get a little piece patchwork, right? So if I want this one and I want that one, right? So I end up with this like ACL that's like 30 long, right? And then of course my advertisements are going to get a little bigger. Yeah, I suspect that won't happen. It may, if you have enough multicast apps, it may look like that. I may be able to group them, so I can advertise like some small group, a /27, a /28, something like that. I can group a bunch together, so I keep the advertising smaller. I have these things sequential. I know they only need one. There they are. Okay, and at an edge of a block of some sort. It could be, the edge of the data center, campus edge, the internet, certainly. I can either have the boundary statements, IP multicast boundary, right? I can do that, or I can just turn off PIM. If I don't have any traffic I want going across to that other unit, it could be another division, right? We don't do multicast between divisions. Cool. Don't turn on PIM then. When the need comes up, you got to re-engineer that, but it also gives you an opportunity to do a review, make sure that the other division hasn't done things that are going to mess up your side, and looking through like priorities for BSR and all that kind of thing, that you're going to take a look at that before you do this. So this is another way of doing it. So I keep the corralled, right? I keep the corralled, because as I've said many times throughout the series, multicast can be anywhere, everywhere, or nowhere. So putting things like boundary statements and turning off PIM could make it in the nowhere space. Like, this is say like I have a shared network with a third-party vendor. Oh, that's gonna be a nowhere space. I don't want their multicast coming in. I don't want my multicast going into it. We don't turn on PIM, and we make sure at whatever interfaces are coming into that space, no multicast, right? Or at the firewall, we don't allow multicast through, okay? And this one, only turning on PIM for interfaces need the traffic. And this one is interesting. This is a big change for me. We're just saying avoid user VLANs if you can. You typically have a lot more control over things like a voice VLAN. Their phones, you're obviously going to stay in close communication with your voice guys, that as their needs change, they're communicating it. Sometimes that's hard, right? I know even IT groups, sometimes we are horrible at communicating with each other. Oh, we changed our complete design, and now we need a complete set of different requirements, and we're still putting in emergency tickets because it does not working when we switched over, because we didn't tell you we switched over. Well, multicast always works, right? Because we enable what we enabled. Bad. Right? See, wagging my finger a lot today. But this is a wag your finger kind of talk, right? This is. Be very selective on which wireless LANs you enable PIM. Like definitely gas. No. I don't want to do that. I do not want gas running multicast. I don't want random people who have only done something, gone as far as to say, yes, I agree to these terms and conditions, which I never read, and I'm going to fight like the Dickens if you, try and prosecute me for doing really malicious stuff. Oh, so long I didn't read it. right? That don't, no, wave off, wave off. Don't do it. And then, obviously other ones, if I have things that, like a group of medical devices and they don't need to run multicast, don't turn it on. If they ever change, they start needing it, great, we get to re-engineer what are the requirements, we can do that, don't turn on PIM there. If there's no specific need for it, don't do it. Don't do it. Now, there's a new one, IGMP filters and SVIs, or a routed interface, whatever, layer 3 interface, and it looks like this. IGMP, IP IGMP access group. And it's an access list. And this one, that way, so like this 239, I showed you the one for SSTP right here. Okay, I can block that. So between two different VLANs where PIM is enabled because I need it, and there's devices running SSTP, I can keep it from flowing between those interfaces. So at the interface, I put in this access group, IP IGMP access group. Now you gotta be careful. Don't block stuff you actually want. And there's some things like I haven't done enough real deep diving into, we often, when we set up groups like this, block 224001, which is the all multicast. And I'm wondering exactly what ends up happening because of that, if there's any unwanted for blocking that. 224002, is that, you put this in place, does that get blocked? That's supposed to allow, that's the all routers, so I can signal them, okay? Certainly if I had something like, I'm not seeing the star comma G show up for the group, well, I'd be curious about that one. Or if IGMB3, I'm having some problems with IGMP3 v3, I have an IGMB3 list receiver, and it's saying I want a particular group, and that's not coming up. There are groups like 224.0.0.22 for IGMP v3, and there's this 224.0.0.2. There's some of those addresses that I may need to have those enabled, or I can see problems. Haven't run into that yet, but that's one of the things I'm going to keep my eye out for, is I'm not including those groups. And there are some things you'll see, like you blocking some of those groups, you may not see that, if you have HSRP, you may not see the two of them neighbor up. They don't see each other's neighbors because you're blocking the right traffic. On the groups, though, that they should see each other, that are allowed, they should see each other. So if a query goes out to that group, the other HSRP should see, oh, hey, there's another querying, and then they can go and have a little election to say, I'm going to be DR, either based on priority or their IP address. Okay, so these are the things you want to keep out for. Let's see what else I have for here. Okay, I built some more stuff in here. This is going to be tomorrow's stuff. We'll pick up with this slide here. And there's some important parts here, more talking about like RPs and that piece of it. So the idea is, yeah, the more freedom you give your users, the more trouble that you can create. And if a secure environment, the more secure environment needs to be where you've got payment card, you've got protected health information, you have other sensitive personally identifiable information, GDPR, all these different requirements. Yeah, be careful with your multicast, because well, it was only supposed to go between this and this segment and this segment. Yeah, if I let it go, he was PIM enabled and he's pulling that traffic that he wasn't supposed to get. So there are ways of securing this thing, and we're going to pick up with this tomorrow. Y'all have a good day. Hope you're staying safe. Wash your hands, and you should be washing your hands enough. You need to, even for guys, they're like, I'm tough, whatever. Moisturizer, right? Because you should be drying out your hands. You wash enough, even if you're staying isolated, right? The thing is, you're touching mail that came in. touching deliveries, you still want to stay clean. If you're in a common space, you need to use elevators or whatever. Yeah, wash. Touch the elevator button, wash. Right. So think about buying yourself some like scent-free, moisturizer. You can, if it bothers you enough, you can buy moisturizer for men. There's products that are sold like that. Whatever. But and if you start stealing your female partner stuff, just let her know, because all of a sudden it's kind of like the toilet paper problem. Part of our toilet paper problem, frankly, besides panic, is the fact that we used a lot of toilet paper in the office. If you were 9 to 5, or if you had one of those like 80-hour a week in the office jobs, the 80-hour a week people, 80-hour, 100-hour a week people probably barely used any toilet paper at home ever. So now all of a sudden they're using much toilet paper because they were using it at the office, and your office didn't send you home with big baskets of toilet paper. So, that alone has kind of changed. And of course, they're not those commercial brands, right? The sandpaper from your office, you like, no, I want the good stuff. If you're an American, I don't know, maybe some other countries don't care so much, but certainly as an American, yeah, that is actually part of our toilet paper problem. So, when you start using your partner's moisturizer, let her know, so that, she may need to restock more often, okay?